Marcus Tally never forgot the sound of doors closing in his face. They didn't slam. No, life wasn't always that dramatic. Most times, the doors just clicked shut quietly, with that cold, polite tone people use when they want you to understand you're not invited inside. That's Marcus's childhood soundtrack. Quiet rejections, low expectations, and the kind of silence that tells you the world doesn't see you. But you better learn to see yourself. He grew up in Eastbrook, a neighborhood where dreams had shorter lifespans than streetlights. Jobs were seasonal. Opportunity was a rumor. And the only businesses thriving were the ones you didn't brag about in the daylight. But Marcus saw something different. Where others saw an impossible climb, he saw a ladder he was willing to build step by step. By the time he turned 18, he was working 2 jobs, saving pennies that looked so small they almost felt like disrespect. But Marcus knew what he was building toward. He didn't want to leave Eastbrook, he wanted to change it. And he started small. First, a food cart, then a stand. Then, after years of grinding through early mornings, late nights and burnt fingertips, he finally opened Tally's Corner Diner, a name chosen not for flash, but for truth. It was on a forgotten corner no one fought over, a place the city planners overlooked, but Marcus turned it into a haven. The kind of spot where construction workers could get a hot plate, kids could buy fries for pocket change, and anybody from the block could sit down and feel like the world wasn't pushing them out of the picture. For years, Marcus was in the thick of it. He cooked, he cleaned, he washed dishes until his knuckles split. And slowly, the diner became what most people never expected a black-owned business to be. Reliable, consistent, respected. But success has a funny way of rearranging a man's life. When the diner started doing numbers, when investors reached out, when the media wanted photos, Marcus found himself wearing more suits than aprons. He stepped off the line, stepped into the office, and before long stepped out of the day-to-day completely. At first, it made sense. That's what growth looked like, right? A business shouldn't need the owner breathing down its neck. But as the months turned into years, something inside him shifted. Not loudly, just a slow, creeping discomfort. The kind you don't notice at first because everything looks fine on paper. But the soul of the place? It felt like it was thinning, and Marcus didn't know why. What Marcus didn't know was that while he stepped away, something else stepped in, something far more dangerous than he ever imagined. Marcus tried brushing off the feeling, telling himself he was overthinking. But every time he visited the diner, he felt foreign, like he was walking into someone else's space. The greetings were polite, but not warm. The energy was functional, but not alive. The culture he created, the respect, the pride, the work ethic, felt diluted. Customers didn't complain. Revenue didn't drop, but Marcus felt it in his bones. Something was slipping, and if he didn't grab it soon, it would fall out of reach completely. One night, after finishing a business meeting filled with smiles that felt too forced and praise that felt too broad, Marcus sat alone in his car and admitted something he'd been avoiding. He missed his diner. He missed being present. He missed knowing what was happening in the place he built from nothing. And what he didn't realize was that the diner missed him too, but not in a way he expected. The next morning, Marcus woke up with a clarity that shocked him. No more suits, no more distance. If something was off in his business, he wasn't going to fix it from a boardroom. He needed to see it raw, unfiltered, unpolished. He needed to walk into his diner the way any ordinary customer would. No announcement, no warning, no cameras. Just him. He opened his closet, bypassing the tailored blazers and crisp shirts. Instead, he grabbed a plain charcoal hoodie, jeans with a little wear, and a baseball cap he hadn't touched in years. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't see the millionaire entrepreneur the newspapers wrote about. He saw the version of himself who once survived on grit alone. He liked that man better. Before he left the house, he paused, and something in his chest tightened, a mix of pride and fear, because this wasn't just a visit. This was a test, and he had no idea that what he was about to hear inside that diner would cut deeper than any closed door from his past. As he drove toward Tally's Corner, he noticed things he hadn't paid attention to in years. The cracks in the sidewalks, the new murals on the walls, the old barber shop 2 blocks down that still had the same crooked sign. Eastbrook had changed, but not entirely. He parked across the street, watching the diner from the safety of his windshield. The sign he painted himself was weathered, not neglected, just tired. He could fix that. He made a mental note. But that wasn't the real problem. It was what he felt when he looked at the windows. The warmth seemed dimmer, the identity is weaker, like the soul had drifted and no one inside remembered its original shape. Before stepping out, Marcus took a breath, then another. And right here, if you're someone who likes real stories about real people navigating real struggles, yeah, go ahead and subscribe. Because this one, it gets deep. He stepped out of the car, pulled up his hood, and crossed the street. No one looked twice. No one nodded in recognition. He was invisible, which for today was perfect. When he pulled open the diner door, the familiar jingle of the bell hit him like a memory. But the vibe inside? It didn't match the sound. It didn't match the history. It didn't match him. For a split second, Marcus wondered if he had waited too long to come back. And as he walked up to the counter, he had no clue that the next 10 minutes would reveal the truth he had been trying not to see. A truth that would force him to decide who he was as a leader, right there on the spot. When Marcus walked into the diner, the first thing he noticed wasn't the smell of grilled onions or fresh coffee. It was the absence of recognition. Not a double take. Not a pause. Not even a flicker of familiarity in anyone's eyes. He had walked into his own creation and become invisible inside it. Claire was at the register, tapping her nails on the counter with the impatient rhythm of someone who was mentally halfway home already. Eddie leaned against the soda machine, scrolling on his phone, the way an employee does when they believe nobody who matters is watching. That alone told Marcus everything he had feared. Leadership had left the room long before he decided to walk back in. He stepped toward the counter, keeping his hood low, masking his voice when he ordered, turkey melt, extra pickles. Claire didn't even look at him. Name? He almost said it out of habit, but he caught himself just in time. Mark. She typed it in with a sigh so heavy it sounded personal. Marcus didn't know it yet, but this fake name was about to give him access to the real truth behind the counter. He moved to the pickup area, blending into the crowd of lunchtime customers. The diner buzzed with chatter, forks clinking, rug chairs scraping, familiar sounds that once brought him joy. But now, under the surface, something felt off. The atmosphere was different, stiffer, less human. Then it happened. He heard his real name float through the air, spoken by a voice coated in irritation. "Marcus got us messed up working these hours," Claire muttered, not even trying to keep it quiet. Marcus froze. His heartbeat didn't quicken, it slowed, dropped into a deep, controlled rhythm. He didn't move, he didn't turn, he didn't react. He just listened. And what he heard next was a crack directly to the foundation of everything he built. "Man's never here," Eddie chimed in, loud enough for the staff to hear, but soft enough to pretend he wasn't broadcasting. "Bet he's at home counting money while we're out here doing everything." Claire scoffed. "Counting money? Please. You see the equipment breaking down? You see these hours? He's probably too cheap to fix anything." Eddie laughed. "True, Diner ain't been the same since he ghosted." Marcus realized they weren't just venting, they were rewriting his story, right in front of him, with no idea the man they were tearing down was standing 10 feet away. The cook, Elaine, shot them a warning glance. "You'll need to hush with all that," she whispered. Claire rolled her eyes. "Ain't nobody listening." Marcus closed his eyes for half a second, not to calm down. He wasn't angry, not yet. He was disappointed, deeply, quietly. He never treated his employees like this. He paid better than most diners, offered flexible shifts, even helped some of them with rent when they hit hard times. But none of that loyalty sat in the room today. None of it protected his name now. Then came the line that cut deeper than the rest. "Honestly," Claire said, "if Marcus sold this place tomorrow, I wouldn't care. He doesn't even run it anymore." Marcus felt something inside him go still. Not broken, steel. It was one thing to complain. People complain everywhere. But dismissing his entire contribution? His legacy? Acting like he didn't matter? That was different. That wasn't frustration. That was disrespectful. And the worst part? Claire and Eddie weren't wrong about everything. The diner had changed. Marcus hadn't been present. And now he was hearing the price of that absence in real time. But the disrespect didn't stop there. Eddie leaned in closer to Claire, voice dropping into a mocking tone. "Remember when he tried to give that little motivational speech last year? Talking about community and building together?" Claire snorted. "Yeah, sounded like a TED talk nobody asked for." They laughed. Marcus didn't. He stayed frozen, hands wrapped around the sandwich he wasn't sure he had the appetite for anymore. Just then, Elaine slid a paper bag onto the counter. "Turkey melt for Mark." Her voice trembled slightly. Maybe she knew, maybe she didn't. Marcus stepped forward, took the bag, and gave her a respectful nod. She hesitated before returning it, almost as if she sensed something the others were too careless to notice. But she didn't say a word. He turned toward the door, but he didn't leave. Not yet. He moved to a booth in the corner instead, one partially hidden behind a pillar. From there he could see everything, the body language, the energy, the shortcuts, the attitude. He didn't sit down to eat, he sat down to witness, and what he saw made his chest tighten. Customers are waiting longer than they should. His table's not wiped properly. Small mistakes are piling up. Claire is chatting instead of ringing up orders. Eddie was taking breaks that weren't breaks. Elaine is hustling alone in the kitchen. It was the slow unravelling of a culture he once fought hard to protect. If you're still watching right now, then you're the kind of person who understands stories like this matter. So yeah, go ahead and hit subscribe. These real-life lessons, they don't just entertain. They reveal who we are. Marcus watched as Claire leaned over the counter again. "I swear if I ever see Marcus, I'm telling him straight up, hire more staff or fix this dump." That word, dump, echoed in Marcus's mind. This wasn't a dump. This was his legacy, his sacrifice, his second home long before he could afford a first. He sat there with the sandwich untouched, staring into a place that used to lift him up, now pulling him down with every careless word spilling from behind the counter. What Marcus didn't know was that this moment, this quiet, painful moment in a dim corner booth, was about to trigger the kind of decision that separates leaders from legends. He wasn't just going to respond, he was going to change everything. Marcus stands there, still unnoticed, and the room feels colder than the wind outside. For a moment, he's not the owner. He's not the man whose name is painted on the window. He's just a witness, watching the inside of his dream twist in front of him. At first, he thinks the conversation he overheard was a moment of frustration, a bad day, a slip. But when Eddie moves down the counter, mumbling under his breath, Marcus sees something deeper, patterns, not cracks, fractures. The kind that don't show up on a profit and loss sheet, but show up in eyes, in tone, in habits. And once you finally see it, you can't unsee it. But what hits him next, he never saw coming. Marcus walks to an empty booth, sits down and pretends to scroll his phone. He watches everything now, not just with the eyes of an owner, but with the quiet calculation of someone realizing he's losing control of the very thing he built. He watches Claire roll her eyes at customers who ask simple questions. Watches Eddie shove food trays with one hand while texting with the other. Watches Elaine, the cook who's been with him the longest, work in silence, shoulders tight, glancing nervously at the two of them like she's been doing it for months. That's when it hits him. The disrespect isn't the root, it's the symptom. Something else has been growing here, something he never meant to plant. He remembers his father's words, spoken when Marcus was a teenage dishwasher in somebody else's diner. People don't turn on leaders overnight, they drift 1 inch at a time. Well, Marcus has been gone long enough for his team to drift miles. If you're watching this and you want more stories that hit like this one, subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter. Marcus leans back, eyes following Eddie. The guy moves like the diner is a chore, like customers are interruptions, like the uniform is a punishment. But Marcus remembers when he hired him, a young man with a baby on the way and fear tucked behind confidence. Back then Eddie said, "Just give me a chance, I won't waste it." Now the man who begged for opportunity is carelessly stepping on it. But that's when the second hook lands, because Marcus notices someone else watching him, and she knows exactly who he is. Elaine keeps glancing his way, the cook in the back with subtle movements but eyes that miss nothing. When she finally finds a moment alone near the sink, she gives him a small, almost guilty nod. It's the nod of someone who recognizes him beneath the hoodie, beneath the beard he let grow, beneath the disguise he thought would hide him. She doesn't blow his cover. She doesn't say a word. But the truth is loud in her eyes. She's been waiting for him to come back. That realization hits harder than the insults from earlier. Sometimes loyalty doesn't yell, it whispers. And sometimes people don't complain because they don't want to disrespect you. They stay silent because they're trying to protect what's left. Marcus's chest tightens. What has he left this woman to deal with? She gives him another look, just long enough to say, "You see it now, don't you?" And he does. But the real punch doesn't come from the staff. It comes from the customers. Two women in their 50s step in. Regulars, the type who've supported the diner since its early days. They sit by the window, but as soon as Claire comes over, their smiles fade. "Didn't you used to have homemade cornbread?" one asks. Claire shrugs like it's an inconvenience to even hear the question. "We got whatever's on the menu," she snaps. The women exchange glances. One whispers something under her breath that Marcus can't hear, but he sees the disappointment, the hesitation, the way they question whether they should have come. This is what kills a business. Not competition, not recession, not marketing mistakes. Decay. Small, daily decay. And it's happening right in front of him. Marcus closes his eyes for a moment, not because he's tired, but because he finally realizes how far this has gone. Success didn't make him blind. Distance did. And the cruel truth is this. You can't expect people to protect what you stop showing up for. If this story is pulling you in, hit subscribe. These real-life lessons and twists drop every week. Marcus decides to test something, just to confirm his suspicion. He walks up to the counter with his empty cup and quietly asks, "Can I get a refill?" Simple request. But Eddie doesn't even look up. "We charge for refills," he mutters. Marcus pauses. "Do you?" Eddie scoffs. "Man, I work here. I know what we do." But here's the thing. They don't charge for refills. Never have. Marcus implemented that policy himself years ago because he wanted the diner to feel generous. But Eddie isn't making a mistake. He's making money on the side, charging people extra and pocketing the difference. It hits Marcus like a punch to the ribs. Because if Eddie is doing this, what else has been happening behind his back? He glances at Elaine again. She sees the look change in his eyes the moment he finally connects all the dots. She wipes her hands on her apron and looks away like someone who's been carrying the weight alone for too long. And suddenly, it's not just betrayal he feels. It's a responsibility. He left them without guidance. He left her without support. He left his diner without leadership. Loyalty is expensive, but neglect is even more costly. Marcus walks back to his booth and sits down slowly. He watches the room one more time, seeing not a diner, but a story of what happens when a leader assumes people will stay loyal just because he once gave them an opportunity. Loyalty doesn't have memory, it has maintenance. And he hasn't been maintaining anything. His father's voice returns, clear as day. If you leave a good team alone too long, it turns into an average team, and average turns into poison. Well, the poison has spread. But before Marcus leaves, something happens that seals his decision. Something that takes this from frustrating to unforgivable. A teenager walks in wearing a school backpack, counting crumpled dollar bills in his hand. He asks for the cheapest meal they have. Elaine smirks, upsells him something more expensive, and pockets the difference when he pays. Eddie sees it, laughs. Elaine sees it, winces. Marcus sees it, breaks. Not visibly, not outwardly, but inside, something final snaps into place. This is no longer about disrespect toward him. This is about what his absence has allowed them to do to other people. And that's the moment Marcus decides. Tomorrow will not look like today. Not for the diner, not for the culture, not for the people who've been silently praying for change. Because the next time Marcus walks through this door, he won't be wearing a hoodie. He'll be wearing truth, and truth rewrites everything. He stands, takes one last look around the diner he built from nothing, and walks out without saying a word. Tomorrow, the real conversation begins. The next morning, Marcus arrives before the sun even considers rising. The street is empty, the sky still dark, and the neon sign of Tally's Corner Diner glows weakly like it's tired too, tired of the weight it's been carrying. He unlocks the door, steps inside, and feels a silence he hasn't felt in years. Not peaceful. Not warm, a tense silence, a silence that waits. He flips the lights, takes a deep breath, and sits at the same counter stool he built with his own hands the year the diner opened. He runs his fingers along a scratch he remembers sanding over twice. It's still there, just like he left it, but everything else? Different. Because today is the day the pretending ends. One by one the staff arrive. Claire first, walking in like she owns the place. Eddie next, headphones around his neck, swaggering like the morning owes him something. Elaine is last, moving quietly, eyes scanning the room until they land on him. She knows. She's known. Marcus stands, and when he does, the air shifts. He's not wearing the hoodie anymore. Not the disguise. Not the quiet observer. He's wearing the truth, the suit, the clean cut, the posture that built a business from grit and burned fingertips. Claire stops mid-step. Eddie's headphones slide off his shoulders. Elaine exhales with something that looks like relief. Marcus doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. Everyone, have a seat. If you're watching this and you want more powerful stories like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. They sit, slowly, uneasily, a room full of people who suddenly realize the test they didn't know they were taking. They failed. Marcus waits until the quiet settles thick in the room, then he begins. I built this place with my own hands, he says. Not for me. He gestures around. For us, for the community, for the people who needed a job, a meal, and a place that felt like home. But somewhere along the way, something went wrong. He doesn't mention names. He doesn't have to. The truth is sitting right in front of him, but it's what he says next that makes Claire's face go pale. I came in yesterday. Eddie freezes. Claire's eyes widen. Elaine closes hers for a moment like she's been waiting for this shoe to drop. Undercover, Marcus continues. No announcement. No warning. I wanted to see this place the way the world sees it. He looks at Claire first. Her jaw is clenched so tight it could crack. I heard disrespect. I heard blame. I heard my name used like a punchline. He turns to Eddie. I watched you steal from customers. I watched you treat this diner like it's beneath you. I watched you make this place smaller. Eddie tries to speak, but Marcus lifts a hand. Silence snaps shut like a door. Then Marcus turns to Elaine, not with anger, but with something sharp and honest. And I saw you carry the weight alone. Elaine looks down, tears gathering but not falling. She had been loyal in silence, and Marcus sees now how heavy that silence was. But the moment that truly decides their fate is coming next, and none of them are ready for it. Marcus steps forward. This place, he says, is a black-owned business. That means something. It means we don't just serve food, we represent excellence in a world that expects us to fall apart. He looks between Claire and Eddie, and you made it a place people regret walking into. Claire finally breaks. Marcus, we didn't mean... He stops her gently. Intent doesn't fix impact. The line hangs in the air like a verdict. Then he delivers the actual one. You're both done here. No yelling, no drama, just truth delivered clean enough to sting. Eddie stands abruptly. You firing us? Like that? After everything? Marcus doesn't blink. I'm doing what I should have done the moment I stopped recognizing this diner. Claire shakes her head, but she doesn't argue. You can't argue against a mirror that reflects exactly what you've become. They leave, the door slamming behind them like an exclamation point on a chapter that needed to end. And then there's silence again. But this time the silence isn't tense. It's empty. Ready. He turns to Elaine. I owe you an apology. She shakes her head immediately. No, you don't. Yes, he says softly. I do. I left you alone in a place that needed leadership. You kept this diner alive when others were trying to choke the soul out of it. Elaine wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. I didn't want you to come back to a mess, Marcus. He takes a breath, a real breath, the first one he's taken fully in months. You didn't give me a mess, he says. You gave me the truth. If this story is teaching you something, take a second and subscribe. These lessons hit different when they're real. Marcus asks her to sit with him at the counter. For the first time in a long time, they talk, not as owner and employee, but as two people trying to save something worth saving. Then Marcus says the line that sets the new chapter into motion. This place needs a new manager. Elaine freezes, stunned, and I want that to be you. Her hand covers her mouth as the moment sinks in. She had always worked like the diner mattered. Now it finally pays off. But why me? She whispers. Because you cared even when I didn't. And because loyalty without leadership still means something. Elaine nods, slowly at first, then firmly. She accepts, but just when you think the story settles, Marcus reveals one more twist. He stands up and pulls out a folder he brought with him, a blueprint folded neatly inside. "I'm remodeling," he says. "New menu, new staff, new standards. This place is getting its soul back." Elaine laughs through her tears. It's about time. "And one more thing," Marcus says. "I'm coming back to the floor. Not every day, but enough for people to feel me here." Because leadership isn't distance. It's presence. It's pressure. It's showing up. The door swings open as the first customer of the morning arrives, a construction worker with tired eyes and paint on his boots. Elaine snaps into her new role instantly. "Good morning, baby. Sit wherever you like." Marcus watches her own the space. Her voice warm again, her shoulders lighter. This is how a diner is supposed to feel. He steps behind the counter, ties on an apron and pours 2 cups of coffee. One for the customer, one for himself. Because this time he isn't stepping back. He's stepping in. Not as the millionaire in the office, not as the man hiding in a hoodie, but as Marcus Talley, the leader, the builder, the heartbeat of the diner. And with that, the story doesn't end. It resets.